And welcome into the Radio Days edition of Now and Next. This week, got to sit in with my friend Gene Velitis at CKTB in St. Catharines.
We welcome back podcaster and investigative journalist Dave Trafford. Good morning, Dave.
Hello, Gene. How are you?
I'm good this morning. A little chilly, but I think I'll make it.
Good to hear.
Hey, let's start off on a light note. I understand this is the week that the Toronto Maple Leafs are going to celebrate the life and times of one of its greatest play-by-play announcers, Joe Bowen.
Hockey Hall of Fame, right? I mean, and the years that I worked with Joe was just awesome. I mean, I had a career moment, and I've had plenty in this industry, but I got to sit in the broadcast booth with him and Jim Ralph.
Get out.
The night they closed the Gardens. It was the Leafs and the Chicago Blackhawks. And so, I have all the time in the world for Bowen, and it's great to see that they're going to honor him. He's retiring at the end of this season. So, it's going to be, Buck Martinez maybe stepping back from the mic with the Blue Jays and Joe stepping away from the mic with the Leafs. I don't know what we're going to do with, the pro teams in terms of the broadcast. They're going to be different this year, but certainly I love that they're going to honor Bowen this week in the homestand. And just on that, of course, last night I had to listen to him on the radio because they had the TV game was on Prime.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm flipping around and I get into the Prime show. Oh, my sweet, merciful baby Jesus, Gene. The broadcast on that show is the worst.
Yeah.
It's awful. It makes pro poker tournaments sound exciting. It's awful.
Yeah.
So just against Bowen, it just really highlights how good he is at what he does.
He really is the best. And he's done something like 4,000 and some odd games, right?
Oh, yeah. He's more than 40 years in the chair, right? And then before that, he was calling games for the Sudbury Wolves. And so he's been doing it a long time. And we're really going to miss him being in the air chair.
Absolutely. Well, a change of subject right now, and I guess I have to do the whoop, 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 scandal alert, scandal alert. The OPP has confirmed that its anti-rackets branch has launched an official investigation into a company called Get Ahead, a business that received, tens of millions of dollars from the Ford government and the whole skills routine. Oh, Dave.
Yeah, this just isn't going away. Now,
No.
to give a little bit of background here on this, what they had done is they had given this, it's called Keel Digital Services now, I think. And so they had given money to this group years ago, and they just do a normal, audit, and they just try to figure out where the money went, et cetera. That audit triggered a forensic audit because they said there's something squeaky here that we have to deal with. And then the forensic audit said, hey, you know what? You should probably have the OPP look at this. So there's been a series of investigations into the books in this particular company vis-a-vis money coming from the province. And here's the problem. First, the Skills Development Fund has just been an S show for the labor minister, right? I mean, it's just been a nightmare. And here's the problem. On the surface of it, it's a really good program. It's what we need to develop skills and skilled trade skills and so on, particularly among our youth. I've seen, I'm sure you've seen on Facebook and social media lately, all the conversation. Do you encourage kids to go into journalism or be a plumber? Well, guess what? We need skilled trades. And so the program in and of itself is really valuable. The issue is, and the Auditor General has brought this up, there seems to be a complete, it's all about favoritism. It's all about who in the government in terms of how you are getting the funds. So this has been on the front burner for months, literally, at Queen's Park. David Piccini, the labor minister, has been taking the blows. The premier doesn't seem to be ready to fire him at any point or kind of reset at any point. Now, this might happen. The House is going to rise in the next few days. So the long winter might see a change in that ministry. But now that we've got the OPP involved, it's at a real rolling boil. So what's going to happen with this fund? What's going to happen with this minister? It might not be all that happy a Christmas for Minister Pacino.
Yeah. Well, in fairness, for a little bit of balance here, the CEO of Keel Digital, the parent company of this other organization called Get Ahead, says it has complied with all laws and contract obligations. So we'll put that out there.
Completely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
The other thing too, from the skills development program, it went to a company that has a lot of companies underneath it, and I didn't understand that training strippers was a skill development, but it is legal in Ontario, and I guess it is a skill. You have to know how to take your clothes off, and money went to fund that. So at least somebody's got a job now with a new skill, undressing.
Well, to your point, it's also very complicated because the company in that case that's doing the training is a non-profit company that works out of the same space as the adult entertainment facility on exhibition grounds in Toronto. And so they are providing all of the training for anybody who works in that building. And it just so happens that from time to time, the adult entertainment becomes the focus of that business. So you're right. It kind of becomes part of the money is going into that arm's length. It's not direct, but you know what? We on the podcast, we've been talking about this a lot on the Ledge, and Tim Hudak, former leader of the opposition and leader of the Tory party, his wife, Deb Hutton, advised a couple of premiers in this province, and her attitude always has been to say, if it's still on the front page 24 hours later, you need to reset the conversation and reset the agenda. And for whatever reason, the Ford government has not done that. So, they're going to wait this out. They're going to see how it plays out. But I can't see, all the memes in the next election campaign that are going to come out of this in terms of how the opposition is going to be able to attack the Ford government. They're giving them fodder right now for the next election.
Yeah, well, I was reminded this morning by a friend here at the radio station that, the Ford government, he's almost the Teflon Doug in a way.
Yeah.
He's won 3 elections in a row. The last premier to do that was Klein out in Alberta years and years ago. It just seems like nothing can stick to the Ford family.
Yeah, no, you're right. It's with everything that's gone on. I mean, the guy still got an approval rating that's pushing, close to 50% some days, depending on who's asking the question. And that's remarkable. I mean, even today, where the health minister's coming out and saying, by the way, Gene, if you want to have your knee or your hip done, we're going to open up private clinics to make sure you don't have to have the long waits anymore. Mm-hmm. And for all of the angst and hand-wringing around, oh my God, it's privatization. You know what? There's a lot of folks our age are going to say, yep, put me in that line because I want to be there to make sure that I'm mobile in my elder years. And I don't have to pay anything for it. It's still my OPP card and all those sorts of things. So he's ringing these populist bells that really resonate with people, despite all of the stuff that's coming out from the Auditor General and the scandal with skills development and so on. So you got to give the guy credit.
Mm-hmm. You know who else I'm giving credit to is the NDP leader, Stiles, down at Queen's Park. I'm pretty impressed with her. Are you?
Toot toot, all aboard. Did you heard her clip last year? Yeah, she's really good at making sure that the headlines get back into the media the next day after question period, because as you know, it's question period, not answer period. So she's making the most of it at the park for sure. But even there, with a leaderless Liberal Party at Queen's Park, she's still dragged down on the polls. I mean, so they don't seem to be able to make any headway or traction in terms of the opportunity that they've got.
Yeah. Adam Zivo, who is an investigative journalist and comes on with me at 10:40 in the morning, he's part of an even though he spends a lot of time in Ukraine and Israel, he's part of an organization here in Ontario that want the Ford government to be more conservative. And what they contend is he's kind of like, a little liberal on this, a little conservative on this. They want more conservative focus. I don't see that happening with Doug Ford. I think he's a Tory in name, but a populist in delivery.
Completely. It's the Doug Ford Conservative Party. And I don't say that to be dismissive or derisive. The fact of the matter is the guy knows how to win. He's put everything on the table. We see what's going on. Now, he is actually, taxing my great grandchildren at this point. It's the highest spending provincial government in history. And Kathleen Wynne, former Premier of Ontario, on the podcast with us, and she's quite happy to have that moniker pushed off of her desk and over to Doug Ford. And it's not funny. Right? I mean, at the end of, you talk about the $1 billion a week that we spend in terms of servicing debt, et cetera, in this country. A lot of that is happening at Queen's Park, and it's the highest spending government. And he will come back to you and say, Gene, I've lowered your taxes, I've cut these fees and everything else. That, in effect, is a tax increase if you think about it, because it just drives costs up, right?
Exactly. All right, podcaster and journalist Dave Trafford is with us. We're going to take a really, really quick break. Speaking of money and the Ford government, we're going to go over the Provincial Auditor General's report and talk about some interesting findings here. I also want to get Dave's take on what's happening up in the House of Commons in Ottawa this afternoon. Shelley Spence, the Ontario Auditor General, was out with her report. And man, oh man, oh man, oh man. As Bugs Bunny would say, what's up, Doc? Ontario is not properly overseeing doctors' billings. This is really incredible what's happening. More than 100 doctors in each of the last 3 years submitted claims for working all 366 days a year. Yeah, 366. That should have been flagged. The auditor said numerous physicians also billed for services provided to more than 500 patients a day. They did conduct an audit on some post-payments, including one case that identified nearly $1.4 million in overpayments to a doctor billing more than 24 hours a day, 98 times over 2 years, including one day where they billed 114 hours of service, and they crammed that into a 24-hour day. My dad was a doctor. I trust doctors. Not anymore. What a mess.
Yeah, and I think that's the problem. People jump to that conclusion that the doctor is the problem here. And I'm not sure that that's the case, because if you look at the mechanism around billings for physicians, there's no real there in terms of guidelines or guardrails. So there's nobody overseeing how do we actually do this. I was talking to Tim Hudak about this last week, and Tim points out that the coding language that they use is COBOL. And it's basically a prehistoric language in terms of computing. Yeah. So that's just how old this system is, first of all. But there's no accountability in terms of how the numbers and the hours are actually accounted for. So here's the question. Does that mean that at the end of the month, somebody in the office is, just piling up all of those numbers and it looks like it's all in one day? Is it a number of nurse practitioners and doctors in the clinic who are all putting it all in the same pot at the same time? That's how it looks like 366 days a year. So there's all these things in place and nobody knows, because there's nothing in there that says this is how they're going to do it. So, a couple of things. They need to severely look at how that mechanism works in terms of the billing services and, how do we account for it. But one of the guys I was talking to last week, Gene, the idea is why isn't the patient involved in this? And the guy came to clean my furnace last week. I had to look at the bill and he said, I did this, I put a new filter in, we did this and this and this, checked them all off. And then I signed it. Then I paid him. We don't do that at the doctor's office. No. You could go in, turn your head and cough, and I have no idea what else is on that bill that the doctor has submitted. And I'm not suggesting that there's anything untoward going on here, but if I had to look at it and say, okay, yeah, she did this and this and this and this and made sure that I had a prescription for my whatever, okay, I checked all those things off. That's a level of accountability, at least, where I, as the end user, confirmed that, yeah, these were the services that were performed, and this was the advice I got, et cetera, and this is what it cost. So the overarching infrastructure is the real problem here. And it's not just a Ford thing. This has been going on for years.
Oh, yeah.
So, right, forever. And you'll know, a lot of people don't realize this, but doctors are self-employed, right? They're not hired by the government. They're not public servants. They are entrepreneurial individuals. They run their own business. So this is a huge part of the problem. Talk to the OMA. They'll say we spend more freaking time, particularly in primary care, all the paperwork, all of the forms we have to fill out, all of this stuff, it takes away from time with patients. So there's our underlying serious problem with the infrastructure vis-a-vis billing and the administration of how doctors' offices are run.
Billing 366 days a year.
Exactly.
And people still can't find a family doctor. And in Ontario, more than 10,000 people died on a medical waiting list last year alone. That's really incredible. One of the expressions, Dave Trafford, that we heard during COVID, I never knew of it before, were PPEs, personal protective equipment. Well, it turns out, thanks to the Auditor General, Ontario wrote off $1.4 billion worth of PPEs that had expired. And, I always joke around. I always talk about taxpayer dollars going up in smoke. Well, they took these products that had expired and they actually put them in an incinerator and started them on fire. And I mean, literally, your taxpayer dollars up in smoke. And the other thing that really amazed me was Supply Ontario bought 25 million of those N95 masks in 2024-2025. But of those 25 million, they only distributed 5.5 million. So I guess those will expire and they'll set them on fire as well. It's just like, man, who's in charge?
And this is a procurement issue. It's less of a health problem, but you're right. And if you go back and remember during COVID, one of the problems we had early on was we had a shortage of PPE, and we discovered that the supply we had was expired, that it was not useful anymore or not up to standard. And most of the masks that they have procured are not N95s, so it's not even like they can roll them into the hospital system on a regular basis. At the end of this month, we're going to push these many more into it, and we're going to procure that many more to keep the supply up. There doesn't seem to be any rhyme or reason behind any of that. So, we like to think that we would learn some lessons from COVID. Apparent to me, Gene, we did not.
No. And, there's a local connection here. I drive by Joseph Brant Hospital in Burlington occasionally, and on social media, I noticed that the hospital is looking for donations to get a brand new CT scanner. They do about 20 to 25,000 scans a year. It's about 50 or so every single day. So they need another CT scanner, and they're asking. I mean, they're out there in the street begging for money. Fortunately, there's a philanthropic family in the Burlington area that will match donations up to $50,000. But another portion of this Auditor General's report, she was critical of the Ford government spending $117 million in advertising. And one of those ads got Trump so upset that the trade negotiations were stalled. And I'm just thinking, you need a CT scan and you're begging for money when the Ford government is wasting money like this? Like, take some of that money, get the hospital a new CT scanner.
Well, I hate to break it to you, but that Reagan ad that the Ford government, fired off in the United States was not included in that $112 million. So that went way up higher, considering the ad. Exactly. But here's the problem I have. Last night I'm watching TV, and I've got, the ad comes up and it's about, smoke detectors.
Yeah.
And it's telling you, oh, by the way, make sure you got your smoke detector, brought to you by the city of Toronto or whatever. That's the kind of ad that governments should be doing. Mm-hmm. Gene, if you want to get your driver's license, here's where you can go and find out how to do that. If you want to find out, permits for your renovation for your bathroom, here's where you should go. Like those sorts of things. The Ford government spend an extraordinary amount of creative on patting themselves on the back, specifically about telling you, well, because we invested in this, your wait times were lower at hospitals, or your commute was faster by 3 minutes between here and here. They just spent so much time lauding themselves, and I think a positive impression, I think, was the phrase that the Auditor General used. And to keep in mind, they were running those ads into the election campaign last year, and they're supposed to all stop that government ad. Well, the election was called so quickly, the ads didn't stop either. Now, that didn't come up in the AG's report. That's just a personal observation we made on the podcast and say, hey, you can't be doing that. So the whole thing around advertising, government ads is really, I think, there isn't even gray in there. It's just, wow, they're way over and so politically driven. That's one thing. Here's the other side of it. Your point about the scan equipment. Government money does not buy that kind of stuff.
I know.
Right? the hospitals have to rely on their foundations to actually go and do all of that extra stuff. Well, really, what the hell are you spending it on?
No, it's so true. Hey, listen, I only have like about 30 seconds. But today at the House of Commons in Ottawa, the Tories are putting forward a non-binding motion that will require Liberal MPs to decide if they support their own MOU for an oil pipeline from Alberta to the West Coast. Will this just be the worst act of hypocrisy you've ever seen in your life? Will the Liberals support their own memo of understanding?
Well, this is just brilliant opposition, right? I mean, this is just it's kind of like the old, do you still beat your wife question?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how you answer it;
Exactly.
it's the wrong answer, right?
Yep.
And that's what they're going to be up against. So it's good on the Tories for doing this, but the Liberals are going to vote against it because they say it doesn't include the duty to consult with First Nations and provinces.
Blah, blah, blah.
But you're right. The headline's going to be Liberals vote against the pipeline for sure.
Geez. Hey, listen, tell everybody about your podcast, what's coming up, who's on them, and how we can hear them.
On the Ledge, your Ontario Politics podcast. Kathleen Wynne, Tim Hudak, John Wright, Keith Leslie round out the table. And we record on Thursdays, and we land in your inbox on Fridays. So you can find us wherever you get your podcast. On the Ledge, your Ontario Politics podcast.
All right. Great voices on that podcast as well. Hey, Dave, always great talking to you, and we'll do it again next week.
Thanks, Gene.
Okay, there he goes, podcaster and journalist Dave Trafford, who knows his stuff when it comes to Ontario politics.
Now and Next is an Eye Contact production.